For the sake of simplicity and the sake of just all of us agreeing, I think we can all agree that most of these conditions, including type 2 diabetes, are lifestyle first. And if you don't change the lifestyle factors, the medication being removed from the scene will allow that disease process to return. That's just basic physiology. That's just how it goes. The article is titled Weight Regain After Cessation of Medication for Weight Loss Management. It's a systemic review and a meta-analysis. They basically took a bunch of studies going way, way back of all the different types of GLP-1 medications, the different incretin medications, and looked at overall what were the outcomes. And the results were this paper. So of the 922 titles screened, 37 studies, 63 intervention arms, 9,341 participants were included. Average treatment duration was 39 weeks. The average follow-up was 32 weeks. The average monthly rate of weight regain, we're going to talk about. There was a lot of weight regain. And I want to preface this with some understanding, some definitions, and also some just very basic common sense. What happens when you don't do anything else but take blood pressure medication for your high blood pressure? Drum roll, please. Your blood pressure skyrockets when you go off the medication. What happens when you go on a statin medication for high cholesterol and you don't do anything to change your high cholesterol levels? Your cholesterol and lipids skyrocket when you go off the medication. This is the No-Shit Sherlock game, right? So if an individual goes on a medication to treat a chronic illness, what are the expectations when they go off that medication? Because there is no pharmaceutical that actually cures anything, right? They're all Band-Aids. There's been I have had my conversation about GLP-1s and microdoses and the healing impacts and all of that. Yes, that all still stands. That's not the conversation we're having today, because that conversation got twisted up and people took it for what they wanted. And big FYI, 99% of you are not microdosing. You think you're microdosing. You're not. The standard starting dose for semaglutide is 0.25 milligrams. Most of you are started on 0.25 milligrams and told you're microdosed. The standard starting dose for tirzepatide is 2.5 milligrams. Many of you are put on that dose and told it is a microdose. It is not. Both of those are the standard starting dose. They're both the doses that are given to people with extreme obesity and extreme diabetes. You're not microdosing by taking the standard starting dose, okay? A microdose is a fifth to a tenth of the standard starting dose. It is not a weight loss strategy. It was never intended to be a weight loss strategy. It is not a vanity weight loss strategy. You guys have lost the plot. And I've done a whole podcast about that, so I'm not going to rant. But continuing on in this game of No-Shit Sherlock, when you have a chronic illness or chronic disease process going on and you don't take any lifestyle measures to remedy that chronic situation, then when you go off the medication that you're taking for that chronic situation, the chronicity of the situation returns. That's just how it works. So there was never any illusion that taking a GLP-1 would magically allow you to lose weight and forever keep it off once you stop the medication. That has never been the case. And yet people love to double down on that. Well, when you go off it, you gain all the weight back. Yes, no shit, Sherlock, right? Same thing with all the other medications. And I can make a very strong argument that your high blood pressure and your need for high blood pressure medications is coming from lifestyle, almost 100%. I would say 90% of lipid issues are coming from lifestyle. There is a hereditary issue there. There might be a hereditary issue with high blood pressure, but I don't think it's necessarily the high blood pressure as much as it is your cortisol response to things. And what is really high blood pressure anyway? I did a whole podcast about it, but that number keeps changing. So for the sake of simplicity and the sake of just all of us agreeing, I think we can all agree that most of these conditions, including type 2 diabetes, are lifestyle first. And if you don't change the lifestyle factors, the medication being removed from the scene will allow that disease process to return. So that's just basic physiology. That's just how it goes, right? Now, we could argue all day about lifestyle and how much of it is to blame. I will say this. I recently saw a big influencer who I respect him. He did a post that said, it was kind of like a new year, things we can all agree on in the new year. And number one, obesity is not genetic. This guy's smart. He doesn't actually have any clinical experience, nor does he have any nutritional training. He's just sort of a self-learned guy, which I'm not dissing. A lot of you are self-learned, and you're here, and this is why I teach, because you guys are self-learned and you are smart as hell. So that's fine. But it was such an ignorant thing to say because it's wrong. And there are genetic components and there are epigenetic components. And this is not a podcast episode about the nuance of the disease of obesity. We can do that another day. I've talked to Dr. Spencer Nadolsky. We can put that in that episode in the show notes. He goes into it a bit. But here's the thing. Those genes, those epigenetic influences, those are all turned on or off by your lifestyle. So while there are definitely genetic propensities towards obesity, those genes act more strongly, if you will, in the presence of high refined carbohydrate intake, lack of exercise, all the things, right? So you can turn the ship to a large degree through lifestyle when it comes to obesity. That doesn't mean that obesity is not a disease. That does not mean that obesity does not have genetic components and epigenetic components. It's nuanced. It's both. All right. So just like your high blood pressure, just like your high lipids, it's both. And so we have a saying, which I probably will get in trouble if this is on YouTube. So I will say pew pew, but genetics loads the pew pew and environment and lifestyle pull the trigger. So that's how it works. I'm not going to argue with you guys. I'm sure you'll have a heyday in the comment section, but that's how it works. I'm sorry. And those of you who are arguing otherwise are intentionally ignorant and not looking into the latest data, or you have severe obesity bias. And if you're mad at me, then I don't care, because in 2026, I do not give a shit about anything. I am out of shits to give. So I'll quit cursing now, but we'll move on. So this paper basically showed across all of those studies that they did the meta-analysis on and the systemic review, that there was a very large weight gain return. And all of the markers that had improved, the blood markers, the hemoglobin A1C, and many of the markers that they ran that had shown great improvements on the GLP-1 all ceased to be improved once the GLP-1 was removed. The GLP-1 was doing the heavy lifting. You guys know I have argued against high doses of GLP-1s. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan under any circumstance. Microdosing was what I came out with, and I told you all from the beginning that it is reserved for those who are metabolically optimized already. This is not obesity bias. This is just facts. You can't use tiny doses and expect a damn thing to happen unless you're already in pretty good shape, pretty good health overall. And I did not make the rules. The need to crank the dose up to move the needle definitely comes with risks, and it definitely comes with side effects, and it definitely comes with an increased risk for gastrointestinal issues. I've been very transparent about all of that. I think my message was misunderstood by a lot of people because they just heard what they wanted to hear. And I can tell that because people will message me and say, I just listened to this episode of you on so-and-so's podcast, and I want to, and then they give me their entire health history, and it's severe and chronic, and they're really sick, and they've got a lot of weight to lose. And they're like, will microdosing help me? No. You're looking at a more standard dosing necessity. That said, when we start taking super physiologic doses of something, 1 or 2 of these, signaling peptide hormones, we mess up the orchestra. It's an orchestra. It's not just GLP-1. It's GIP. It's glucagon. It's ghrelin. It's leptin. It's, CCK. It's PYY. It's all of these other, there's more. It's adiponectin. They all work harmoniously inside our bodies. And what happens when systems go awry and we end up going down that obesogenic, diabetic pathway, that metabolic dysfunctional pathway, which, by the way, is actually all derived, it starts in the gut. It starts with lipopolysaccharides in the gut. It all starts with the gut. I just did an awesome masterclass with my buddy Kieran all about it. We will probably repeat that sometime in the future because it was such a big hit, but it all starts in the gut. And so once that process starts and that person is on that pathway, Then now we have to take into consideration those genetic and epigenetic factors, and boom, we have a perfect storm. And I know many of you have messaged me and said, I don't know what happened. I hit menopause and I think I just blew up. Like things just blew up. Like my health went sideways. My weight gain was massive, all the things, right? So if you're one of those people that want to shame that situation, then you should probably leave my following completely, because I'm just not having it. Like, it's just ignorance. And if you're a big influencer or even a doctor, God forbid you're a doctor and you think that way, like, go look some shit up and learn better. Just go do better, because that kind of ignorance there's so many factors. I will come back to the hill I will die on, though, which is your lifestyle turns those genes on or off, or impacts how significantly they are expressed. So there's no just cranking GLP-1s and saying, okay, great. And there's no, let's just tell them to double down and eat less and work out more. That's what everybody screams in my comment sections and in my DMs. It's both. We have to figure out how to get that orchestra of signaling peptide hormones in their body under control to some degree. And they have to, as I've spoken of, the spark. We need that strength training, that exercise, that circadian rhythm, that stress reduction, the eating nutrient-dense foods, the movement, the sleep piece, the hormones, all the things as I call it. Those all have to be dialed in too. And they have to be addressed too, because a GLP-1 alone isn't going to fix it, or an incretin medication. I don't care how fancy they get. It's not going to fix the problem. And this is not always going to keep the problem at bay, because here's what happens physiologically. I did a whole episode about this too. When you lose weight, you lose your leptin. Your leptin comes from your fat, and it tells your brain that you're full. And when you lose fat, you lose leptin. And so it is almost impossible for people who lose a tremendous amount of weight to keep it off. They have about some studies say 2% to 5%, others say up to 10% chance of keeping that weight off. Those are the same stats as rehab. So it's like asking a heroin addict to kick the habit through better willpower, right? So I know apples to oranges, but you get my drift here. They're fighting an uphill physiologic battle. And then the simplest way I can explain it is, if they were running 2 miles a day to keep their weight at bay, they now have to run 3 or 4, and because of the reset. That body wants to reset itself. That metabolic rate wants to reset itself. GLP-1s protect against that to some degree, but there's no version of this where somebody takes a dose of a GLP-1, whether it's tiny or large, drops a significant amount of weight. And I would say a significant amount of weight would be 15, 20, 25 pounds plus, okay? Drops that weight and then keeps it off when they go off the GLP-1. And there's no version where it's just grind it out and it will always work. Now, it might work for some, but I have grown up in an obese family. I have watched everybody I love in my family go up and down and up and down and up and down in their weight. I'm the only one who's really maintained a pretty consistent size, and that has been very intentional. And it is an uphill battle. And the older I get, the harder it gets. But that's just not how physiology works. So we'll go into that another day on a different episode. Let's talk about the study a bit more. And I have a solution for you. So hopefully that was helpful. For the sake of simplicity, and the sake of just all of us agreeing, I think we can all agree that most of these conditions, including type 2 diabetes, are lifestyle first. And if you don't change the lifestyle factors, the medication being removed from the scene will allow that disease process to return. That's just basic physiology. That's just how it goes.